Hi, everybody. My name is Melanie Rogers, and I'm inviting you all to tune in to my show, Flip the Switch, How to Find the Light in Every Dark Shadow, every Tuesday evening at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on ClearSourceRadio.com and iHeartRadio. Hey everyone, you are now listening to Flip the Switch, How to Find the Light in Every Dark Shadow on the Clear Source Radio Network. And as always, thank you so much for listening. Hey everybody, welcome back. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you're having a wonderful week. You're once again listening to Melanie Rogers, your host of Flip the Switch, How to Find the Light in Every Dark Shadow on Clear Source Radio, where people inspire people, also heard on iHeartRadio. Okay, so let me see. It's already the 19th of March. I hope everyone had a great, what was it? St. Patrick's Day. I wasted mine, I have to tell you. I hope everyone had a safe and happy St. Patrick's Day. I have to admit that I'm already sort of failing. I am, let me see, how can I put that in a better way? I don't want to say failing, but I have some things to work on. Things I was talking about beginning of the year. I'm kind of falling behind. I'm having a hard time putting my words together this evening. Kind of falling behind on my objectives, the things that I've been talking about lately. One of those things being movement. Of course, that's supposed to be the big concept of the year for me, is movement. And another one of those things, balance. Other than that, living in the moment and doing things that I've been talking about, getting things done in life so that I can feel free to go and do and enjoy and such. So this is kind of a reminder for me. This show really does help me in that way. I'll be honest. I feel like I kind of hold myself accountable because this is where I put it out. My true incentives and desires and thoughts and feelings and such. I truly do put it out there to you guys. So in the back of my mind, when I get back on here every week and kind of reflect back, I get back in that flip the switch frame of mind, and I start thinking to myself, how much practicing am I doing? Practice what you preach. How much am I walking the walk, talking the talk, all that? And I have to say that I'm kind of in that downward, not dive, but, and I don't want to say low point because it's not a depression thing or anything else, but moral of the story is sometimes we need to keep ourselves in check. And this radio shows actually become a really good way for me to keep myself in check when it comes to things that is going on in my head, things that I put out to be inspiring, but also try to live by. So, all that being said, talking about St. Patrick's Day, here was my St. Patrick's Day. It was my first 3-day weekend. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It was my 2-day weekend. So it was my short weekend. Coming off of a night shift, being off Saturday, Sunday, going back to a day shift is our short weekend. But I'm back into weekends off, so what does that say? It's nicer outside. It was beautiful on Sunday. I have so many plans, so many things I need to be doing. Sunday was also supposed to be my second salsa dancing class and such. I ended up basically staying off and on in bed, kind of watching TV. It was one of my down days, and the whole time I kept thinking, it's beautiful outside, and I should be out there doing something, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't. So that was my St. Patrick's Day. And what kind of bugged me about it, I will say, why this is such a big deal, is that it's one of the first holidays in the new year that we kind of celebrate. We go out. A lot of people go, and whether they go to a party, whether they go to some sort of celebration, some sort of whatever. St. Patrick's Day is that one of those fun holidays that people tend to celebrate, right? And kind of like Memorial Day, which is about reflecting back, but at the same time, it's a day to get together in some cases, if you so choose, to get together and celebrate those who've lost their lives, and also Labor Day and 4th of July. Why I'm naming those specific holidays, or those are kind of the holidays where people tend to get together, have barbecues, or they make them special. They do something special. So it's the only reason I'm kind of batting myself around here is that I did not follow through with my big intentions of the year of celebrating those special holidays. And like I said before, any opportunity you get to actually have some sort of celebration and kind of feed off of the energy of the mass majority, which is fun, energy, and such, I say take advantage of that. Whether you even celebrate the exact holiday or not, we talked about this over the holiday season. You know, I'm pro take advantage of the energy, the positive energy out there and such, and I didn't, but I'm not going to beat myself up too much. I had a lot to do this weekend preparing for my best friend and her son are coming out here this weekend coming up. Now, I'm going to preempt this all in case I forget at the end of the show to let you know. I'm not sure if I'm going to have a show next week because of her visit and such. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to pull it together to do a show on Tuesday. So there's a possibility that I'm going to have to skip it. So anyway, I'm looking forward to that. I will tell you, I'm looking forward to that. We have some plans. It's beautiful here now. I mean, we have some days that's kind of cold, some days it's a little rainy, but lately, like, spring is definitely pushing its way through, which is why I'm kind of beating myself up about Sunday, but I'll let it go. I'll let it go. I didn't go to my class, my salsa class, and I won't be able to go next week either, so sometimes I think we just, you know, we're not always 100% when it comes to that motivation and inspiration. So I say in times like that, just use it to reflect and to build up that energy to bounce forward when you have the opportunity. Okay. I'm really having a hard time with my words tonight. I really am. Okay. So that being said, anyway, I hope that you all had fantastic day, a fantastic weekend and week. I'm trying to think of anything else that I actually did this week that's worth even really talking about other than getting things prepared for my best friend's visit, of course. Nothing really that I can think of. It's becoming springtime out there, and springtime is starting to affect me like fall time does in every way except the romantic part, of course, because that's kind of my fall time frame of mind. I get that romantic feeling in fall, you know, change of the weather and all that. But spring is about to be sprung, and that means that activities are going to start happening. It's going to be beautiful weather. All the things that I have kind of slated in to do around my house, outside, including, you know, fixing my deck, finishing my deck and such. That's right around the corner. So for those of you who prepare, who are better prepared than I am, I guess, I'm working on that this year. I'm working on preparing everything, getting everything ready for those tasks, I guess. So I think that's important so that when the perfect time comes, you know, I'm ready to tackle whatever I need to do. I'm really tired, by the way, so I apologize. I am falling behind here. So tired. Part of that was my little rock monkey, my little rock monster, woke up at like 2 something this morning and just kept jumping around the bed, uneasy. So I finally let him outside, which is always a disaster because there he is by then it was about 3:15 in the morning, and he's out there barking, so I have to go out and get him. He comes in, he grabs his toy and flies across the floor. So he wanted to play at like 3 in the morning. I had a day shift this morning and had to get up and do that. So I've been tired all day. Obviously, I had to kind of plan for the show, get everything together for the show. I'm still trying to get my house prepared for my guests and such. So excuse me if I'm really, really tired. I'm trying to think of some things. This is more of a hodgepodge kind of show tonight, to a certain extent, that I didn't really have a extremely driven mind behind it. You know, a lot of times when I have my shows, there's, you know, such a concept that just starts consuming my head, and my head starts going in so many different directions. I get fired up and that energy builds and I just want to describe. Well, I have a really interesting concept, and so I want to talk about it, but I haven't really had it, you know, on the front burner here. So pardon me here as I try to form my thoughts. Now, this was interesting. This is kind of part of figuring ourselves out. Sometimes we can't. Sometimes, and of course I'm speaking on behalf of myself, and I believe a lot of other people can relate. Sometimes it's kind of hard to figure out where we are in life in general. Sometimes it takes those, for me, my Eureka moments, to discover different things about myself, to discover even the most obvious things that kind of go over my head for a while, and then all of a sudden something just hits home and I think, oh, eureka, this is why I am the way I am, or this is why I do things the way I do them, or I think the way I think, or even if it's not about me, my Eureka moments happen, and it could be about something else, somebody else, a concept, whatever, where all of a sudden it's like, oh, there it is. Okay. Sometimes that's a eureka moment in a euphoric way, like it gets me very excited. Sometimes it opens my eyes to problems or solutions. And when you open your eyes to what the exact problems are in life, it automatically opens the door to possible solutions depending on how you look at life. Therefore, if you are a flip the switch type of person with a flip the switch mindset, you can look at that as an opportunity to open doors for solutions. But the first step is understanding the problems. All right, so that's a well-rounded way of saying I was in a conversation with my mom. And this is probably the most obvious thing to some people, but for me, this is what it took for me to realize that I was kind of caught in a circle, I guess. My initial thought was I pictured a triangle, a Bermuda Triangle, if you will. But now I realize it doesn't always come in 3 sides. I'll explain that in a minute. I'll tell you the conversation I had with my mom and how, of course, you know, I visualized, and how I visualized a triangle. And I thought, wow, that's a really cool visualization to make me understand that at one of those angles, I need to open that up and create a line. When I tell you the story, you'll understand that, but you know I'm visual. So in my brain, that's what I pictured. The 3 different sides of what I was telling my mom, and the realization that if I can open up the top of that triangle and spread it out and make it one line, then I'm going to fix my problem. But then I realized that it doesn't always come in 3s. Like I said, I'll explain that in a moment. Sometimes we just get caught in a big circle. Okay? And what the conversation, the very simple conversation with my mom led me to thinking of are so many different things in life. Of course, I reflected on my life and started thinking of the different situations I've had in my life that felt like I was caught in a big circle. Now, I've talked about that a lot on the show with different things. You know, one thing is because of another, which is because of another, at least in our mind. It's a mindset in some cases where we get hung up and we can't quite break free, or we feel like we can't quite break free from whether it's a mindset or an activity or a reaction or way of life or something specific in our lives, a situation, anything like that. And that desperate need to open up that circle I guess, and release everything that's caught inside, which is another visualization. Okay, so picture that. For right now, picture that. And I'll explain what I'm talking about. Picture that circle now, where one part of life or situation or whatever leads to the next. It's like you can't complete this part because of that part. And you can't do that because of the part before it, which leads back to the first part. So that's like a big circle. And unless you can find a way to open up that circle and release all the chaos that gets trapped inside it, sometimes we get caught up in that. Let's call it a typhoon. There's so many ways I visualize this. That's why I'm going from one way to the next. Because right now in my moment, I'm visualizing all of it, almost like a typhoon or a hurricane. A hurricane is a good one. You picture like a problem. There's a problem. That water is coming full speed ahead toward land, okay? And then, or it's rushing out to sea, and I'm picturing waves going back and forth. Anyway, I've probably already lost you because I'm getting too deep into my visualization. So anyway, here's the conversation. I was telling my mom about how chaotic my house was, and because it's the beginning of spring and the weather's turning nice and I have to start, getting ready for spring, utilizing that weather to take care of certain things in my home, I started telling her about how one of the main things I really need to do is get rid of so many things that are stored right now that I want to sell. Okay. There's so many triangles or circles or hurricanes or whatever in this story, by the way, but I'm going to go to a specific part of it. I was telling her about clothes. Now, over the years, between me buying clothes and holding on to clothes, and my mom giving me some of her clothes. My mom buys really nice things. She used to buy like nice suits she doesn't wear suits all that much anymore, but really nice suits. Ralph Lauren, Donna Karan, just gorgeous suits. Now, I used to wear suits a lot when I worked down in base operations when I was out in California. I love wearing really nice tailored suits. I think it's very classy, and I love it. But not just suits, a lot of just jackets or whatever. Now, that's what we were talking about. What I told her, I said, I need to just go with this mindset of take a box, take a bag, whatever. And whatever I haven't worn, put it in that bag, donate it, sell it, whatever, without thinking twice. And then I started telling her, I was like, the problem is, and this has been a life problem, and it's not just with these suits. I find myself holding on to a lot of things. Now, I can extend that, and I will, during our conversation tonight, extend it into emotions and such, and how that really opened your eyes, or opened my eyes, to deep life things. Why you can't let go of certain things, or why you hold on to. Not even a negative thing, but why we hold on to certain things in life. Thoughts, memories, whatever. Emotions. Going back to the clothes. Now I have a couple of racks, actual racks that I got from my parents when I went to visit them one time. They let me have these store racks that they had bought at some going out of business store or something. They're great to have if you have like a room dedicated to a dressing room or something in your house. Now, I put these racks downstairs in my downstairs bedrooms because at the time I wanted to have this elaborate, dressing room type thing. And I had so many clothes that I had built up over the years. My mom had given me so many clothes over the years. I have them really neatly put on these racks, but that takes up so much space. I never wear these clothes. They're downstairs. I don't see them. So here's where the triangle, and let me try to remember exactly how it led to the triangle. I was telling my mom about me getting rid of these clothes and getting rid of the chaos in the house, which that's pretty much what we started talking about. Telling her that, all this congestion around my house, all these physical things causes chaos. I want to empty out my house in that way and finally get rid of the things that I don't use. The clothes were a big deal. I had a hard time getting rid of those for so many years because every time I go down there and I go through these clothes, I'll try on one thing after another. Now, Some of these clothes are a little tight. I have all different sizes, okay? From some of the clothes that I used to wear that might be tight, some of them that fit fine, some of them that are too big. My mom has given me clothes. My mom has been different sizes over the years, so some of the clothes are too big, but they're nice suit jackets or suit pants. Now, what I was telling her is that I need to get rid of this stuff because the reason I've held on to it is because they're nice suits, okay? I love suits. I want to start wearing them again. These ones are very nice suits from, very designer companies and such. Now, I was kind of hyper when I was, not really hyper, but I was kind of, when I was telling her this story, all of a sudden, this is when it realized it all linked up. And I said, one of the things is I hold on to these suits because I like suits and I want to be able to wear them someday. But one of the problems, I keep waiting, or one of the reasons I hold on to them, when I go through these things, I end up holding on to them still. I've gone through them 1,000 times, and I'm like, no, let me hold on to this, let me hold on to that. Because I figure if I go and invest a little bit of money, I can have them tailor-made to me. And then I'll have all these beautiful outfits. Okay. Now, like I told her, I haven't had a need to wear these suits. I haven't really had a place to wear them. I don't wear them at work. It's more casual than that. I don't have a need to wear them. I don't have a purpose to go and take them. I don't take them in and put that energy into that or that money because I don't have a need to wear them. I don't have a need to wear them, so I don't get them taken care of. I don't let go of them because I want to be able to wear them, but I can't wear them because they don't fit and I need to take them in. I don't take them in because I don't have a need to wear them. Okay? When I started telling her this, I started realizing I was basically talking in circles. Okay? Now, that was a long-winded way of showing you how. Sometimes in life, if we go through, I like doing timelines. I've done that on the show before and showed you like my visualization of timelines and how to progress even in my thought process and how it progresses to get to a completely different place from where it started. From these little small subjects, all of a sudden, reality, like this big eureka moment. In this case, picture that big circle and getting caught up in that circle. How many things in life causes us to get caught up in a big circle? There's so many things. Now, immediately when I started telling my mom that, I stopped and I go, "Oh my God!" It really hit me. I'm stuck in that case. I said triangle because it was like a three-sided triangle. I said, I don't wear the clothes because they don't fit right. Okay, they don't fit right because I don't take them to get them altered. I don't take them to get them altered because I don't have a need to wear them, a place to wear them. I don't have a place to wear them. If I got them altered, I would find a place to wear them. And then I realized I could start at any of these points. Okay, I can either start at the place where, do I have a need for these clothes? Okay, if I have a need for these clothes or if I have a desire to hold on to them because I want to wear them somewhere, I can either go and have them taken in, have them fit nicely so I am now motivated to wear them. I can find a place where I want to wear them and then I have a reason to invest the money into getting them altered. Or I need to let go. Okay? It's like I'm chaining myself to these racks and I'm not allowing myself to set them free or set myself free because of all these areas, but I'm not progressing in those areas because something stops me at each point. Whoa, that's deeper than you can imagine. That's deeper than a bunch of suits. Okay. I told her in that moment, I said, well, you know what, just in this discussion, and this is how fast it happens, I said, I just realized a big, huge thing. I said, this is a show. This is a show topic. I said, believe it or not, just that little thing, I could probably go on for an hour or two talking about this. So, of course, it is a show. Now, I started looking into my life and realizing, really pinpointing different times. And the funny thing is, talking about synchronicity and talking about when you're looking for signs and everything else, synchronicity, a lot of what synchronicity is, or is explained to be, is when you continually find you end up in the same conversations, or all of a sudden you notice that other people are talking about something that you've talked about recently, or you're suddenly concentrating on. Kind of like I was looking for a white car when I went to car shop. Now, next thing you know, you notice advertisements for white cars everywhere. Is it that you just suddenly pay attention because your mind is open to it? Or did you somehow draw that? Is the universe sending you messages? Okay. Now, with this same conversation, that's what was interesting about it, is that the synchronicity was there. All of a sudden, I found myself in so many different conversations about different subjects that made me realize I had been caught in different circles. Okay? I was talking to coworkers today. This is what was funny, is that this came up organically. It's not like I had the show in mind tonight, or when at the time. It's not like I sat there saying, tonight I have this show going on, let's talk about that. So I was at work this morning, and we started talking about retirement stuff, and talking about different things. Somebody said something at some point in life, and how different ones of us really tuned into what they said. And it was like one simple sentence that might have led one of us. My supervisor was talking about how somebody had told him at a young age, and he was only like 19, and he said something about an IRA. And all of a sudden, so he invested in that IRA, and it's something he never would have done, never would have thought about. Okay. Now, I have a retirement thing that I had somebody tell me very adamantly, and this is before I ever would have thought about it, said, when you are eligible to invest in this, maximize it. Always invest the maximum amount. Well, that had a huge impact on me. Just that statement had a huge impact on me, where I probably wouldn't have done that if that wasn't said. Okay, now, that being said, that's where we started the conversation. Where that conversation ended up was us talking about different options in retirement, and talking about how our retirement, in all actuality, compared to a lot of retirements out there, and how a lot of people do things, and how they have to actually physically save money to get the benefits that we'll get in retirement. A pension is what we were really talking about. That led to all these discussions. Then all of a sudden I said, and this ended up being another Melzerika moment that linked directly, synchronistically, to tonight, to this show. Okay. I started talking about how I wish, and that's the one regret I had, that when I was out in California, I would have joined the reserves. Okay. Because we were talking about different pots of money, different retirements. Okay. Now, thinking about that, I said, if I would have, because I wanted to join the reserves while I was working for the Department of Defense back in California, I would have been eligible to retire by now out of the reserves. I would have been eligible to retire way back. That would have been another pension coming to me. Okay. Now, the reason that was a Melzerika moment, the reason that was synchronicity to what I'm talking about right now, is that, and like I said, different conversations led me to realize that there were different things in my life that were basically in a big holding pattern. Let's call it that. Let's call it the holding pattern. That's actually what I entitled the show. But that synchronicity or that holding pattern, how you can't really descend. All right, you're a plane up in the air, and we put you in a holding pattern because we're not ready for you to come in. And how there's different times I got stuck in a holding pattern in life. And now that I realize that, it's like, okay, you have to find a way to break free from that to get where you want to go. Now, the holding pattern I was in when I said about how I wanted to join the reserves, I was trying to remember, and that's what I was telling them is, okay, I wanted to go in, But when I was at March, there were different reasons why I didn't go in. Out there, it was because they were doing the anthrax shot. Okay? I wanted to go in, but I didn't want to take the anthrax shot. It was new. It was mandatory. They had no studies, or they couldn't tell me how it could affect a fetus. And at the time, I wanted a kid someday. So I didn't end up doing that because I didn't want to do the anthrax shot in order to go and get the job that I wanted. It was deployable, therefore I would have needed the anthrax shot. Okay. Now over time, I became anti-vaccine. Like, I won't take the flu shot. I won't do all that. That's my personal choice. I do notice a huge difference as I've detoxed and done natural health over the years, a huge difference. After getting a lot of that out of my system, I do believe that it's caused some of the issues that I hold on to. Therefore, I didn't want to put myself back in that position. So because I wanted to hold on to my health, I didn't join the reserves because they had a requirement for me to take certain shots. If I would have taken those certain shots, my health would have declined. And then in my future, because I'm working really hard to be healthy, which was another thing we talked about synchronistically, of course. We were talking about retirement in the way that different things, different ways of doing things would behoove you to try to be as healthy as you can so that you can get to a certain age and hold off on taking Social Security. That's where our conversation went. And I said, well, that's what I'm doing. That's one of the main reasons, one of many main reasons why I put so much money and effort and time and passion into natural health, because I want to be healthy for retirement, so that in retirement, I'm not paying all those bills, all those medical bills, and so that I can put off collecting Social Security. And it was interesting how it all linked up, because then my mind started going nuts thinking about, okay, when I was here, when I moved to Georgia, I still had the opportunity to join the reserves. And if I would have, still would have, even if I would have waited till I got here. I've been here 17 years. I only had less than 13-year requirement to fulfill my reserve duty and be able to retire and have that pension. I didn't want to do the vaccine still here. And there were other things that I thought was holding me up. And one thing led to the next, which led to the next. It's kind of like if I would have caved in any of those points, then I would have been able to stretch out that circle, make it a line, make it happen. But because I got caught up in that circle, now I'm not going to regret that one, because that's a health thing and I truly believe in that. But like I said, what it did was it took me into this mindset of how many things in life always felt like such a circle. And at what point, being stuck in that holding pattern, at what point are you made aware that you're stuck in a holding pattern? It doesn't matter whether it is these things like, talking about retirement, talking about the reserves, talking about getting rid of clothes, okay? What one leads to the next, because that's basically, and I'm not sure if I really, told you that story in a way that, explains what I'm talking about like it is in my head, but like I said, I'm really tired. But when I really started thinking about it, I really did start thinking about what links to what. And this links to that. And this stops me here. And then this stops me there. And because this mindset is here, then I can't go over here. And that was my Eureka moment. So think to yourself right now, how many holding patterns are you in? How many holding patterns have you been in life? And have you ever noticed that? Or have you ever been made aware that you weren't stuck in a holding pattern that was stopping you from progressing? Like the holding pattern, the plane up in the air. It's stopping that plane from progressing and landing. Okay? Coming in for a full stop, deplaning all the passengers because you're stuck in a holding pattern. Now, I'm trying to think, because like I said, my brain was on fire. All of a sudden, as soon as that Melzureka moment hit, and the Melzureka moment wasn't necessarily about the clothes or anything else. The Melzureka moment was opening my eyes to how many areas of life that I may be stopping myself from progressing because of certain mindsets. It's like you feel like you're trapped. One leads to the next, which leads to the next, and it comes right back around, and it leads to the first issue. And until we break those holding patterns, it's just going to continue to spin. Now, going a little further into this, think of things like abuse in the family. All right? Say you have somebody over a period of time. Okay, I'm going to backtrack this because this is how I look at things. When I see someone who is abusive, or whether it's physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, whether verbal abuse, whatever, or whether they're tormented within themselves. Maybe they're just a negative person. Maybe they tend to lose their temper, whatever, whether it's abuse or not. But we're going with abuse just for the storyline. But keep an open mind to anything that you might see somebody going through that they may not handle the best way. The first thing I do now, if I'm talking to somebody and they're talking about a situation, is I always go back to what was their childhood like. And the reason I say that is because I believe a lot of things are based on childhood, where we learn a certain response to things. We learn to be reactive in a certain way. A lot of times people don't break out of that. And when they don't break out of that as an adult, they continue the cycle. Okay. Now, what I will do, and I've had talks with friends who've talked about maybe their spouses or significant others and the issues that they may have. Not necessarily even abuse, but just issues or whatever. And I always do this now. I say, what kind of relationship did they have with their parents? Okay. In some cases, I'll pinpoint the male or female figure based on what, my friends are telling me or whoever. And, it kind of blows my mind how many people are kind of aloof to that. They'll say, I don't know. No, I guess they didn't have the best relationship or whatever, but they will still always take it back to the person they're talking about. And my thought process of this particular thing, and this will probably be its own show someday as well, is twofold. One, yes, take it back to the adult that you're talking about in the moment, because that's the person who needs to make changes in their lives. They're the ones that have to do the work. They're the ones that have to understand what's going on with them to make those changes. But to understand them and for them to understand themselves, you always have to find a starting point, right? You have to figure out what's causing that trigger. I just went through this last year, big time. Why am I responding to certain things a certain way? What's causing the trigger? What's causing me to be reactive in certain ways? What's causing me to react and take it to somebody else? I've talked about that before. And, starting somebody's day, it could be the smallest little thing that happens to you, and you have a decision to make. Are you going to treat the next person like garbage, or are you going to let it, deal with it and leave it where it is? And then you can affect that person's day, the butterfly effect. So we're going to do the butterfly effect in reverse here. And we are talking about circles, by the way, still. Being caught in those holding patterns. Because this is a deep one. This is a deep holding pattern. When going back to, I'm remembering, I've talked to a lot of people over the years and really have always gone back to my same thought process. Understanding where it began, understanding where they were affected. And it might not always be in childhood. A lot of times it's maybe a relationship or whatever, but I will always go to the childhood first to find out if it's something that it was a learned behavior. Now, I'm thinking of one particular scenario where a friend was telling me about her significant other and the things he deals with. And I asked, what was his childhood like? How did he relate to, both parents? And a lot of times, depending on what the situation is, I'll ask specifically, how did he feel about his mom? Or how did he relate to his mom? How close was he to his mom? And I'll do the same thing with his dad. Was his dad accepting of him? If it's a guy. If it's a female, I'll look at it in a different way. There's so many things that it could be It could be respect for your mom. It could be acceptance from your dad. It could be anything like that. But if it is a family matter, because it's not always a family matter, sometimes it goes back to, well, they were this way. They had this mindset up until this particular relationship that affected them. Or they had this mindset until, they had this experience. They went into the military. Okay, post-traumatic stress. Or they were this positive person until they had all these different things happen that kind of just tested that faith to the point where they lost that. There's a focal point. There's a starting point for everything. When it comes to family stuff, and this is why I talk about the holding pattern in families. Say, that person said, oh, okay, well, they weren't real close with their dad. Their dad was kind of unaccepting of them. Or a lot of times I've heard, well, they didn't really have a dad, or their dad, left, or their mom didn't pay any attention to them. So they always felt like they had to work for her love, or whatever the scenario was. What I will do then is, because a lot of times I'm trying to make another person, just like I talk to you guys, and that's what I'm trying to do, is make you understand my mindset, to take it deeper than a lot of people normally do, and understand where these things start. I will do the same thing if I'm talking to a friend or somebody who's really trying to understand, so that they have more understanding for that person they're talking about, more acceptance of that person. Because then what does that do? That stops the holding pattern. So doing it in reverse, like I said, I'll ask them that. But then I'll explain in my own way how it could be affecting their lives and how, they're reacting based on what they've learned. If it's a family thing, I'll take it back even further. If I get that person talking about the mom or dad, treated them this way or that way, I'll say, okay, what was their parents like? Or what was their relationship with their parents? And I learned so much by doing that, because a lot of times going back in all these different people, friends, family, everybody else, who will go back in time and tell me and link up the different people and how they responded or reacted to or related to their siblings, their parents, or somebody in their family. And then we'll take it even further. Okay, how did that person relate? Okay. I have one friend, and she talks about how her parents affect her and how they treat her. Her mom's in her life now. Her dad has passed. And when her mom treats her a certain way versus how she treats her siblings, she takes care of her mom every way she possibly can. Her siblings don't. They wouldn't even basically throw a scrap of food out, okay? But the mom works really hard at winning over the sibling and treats the sibling who takes care of her like garbage. And she doesn't understand that. And I said, yeah, I get where you couldn't understand that. But look at it this way. First of all, how did your mom relate to her family? And she says, well, she wasn't really even raised by her mom. She was raised by her grandma, who was always partying or not really there. And she wasn't close to her dad. And I said, okay, now that tells me that she has this survival mode instinct, okay? And how she probably relates to you is she's very passive aggressive. She doesn't feel worthy because she was made to feel unworthy as a child. And if she feels unworthy and doesn't understand that within herself, doesn't accept that, or doesn't let it be known that that's the way she feels, then it makes sense to me why you're the one making her feel like she's worth taking care of. She takes everything out on you because it affects you, because you actually care. Now, your brother, who doesn't pay any attention to her whatsoever and treats her like garbage, she's always trying to win his approval. That's because she probably grew up feeling inadequate, unloved, had to gain somebody's approval. You gave her that, and I've talked about this on the show before. You automatically gave her that approval to where you're treating her like she's worthy enough to take care of, and deep inside her mind, she doesn't feel like she's even worthy of being taken care of. That angers her. She's got anger inside. She might not even realize where that anger is coming from. So when she lashes out, who's she going to lash out on? She's not going to lash out on the person who doesn't care, who treats her like she's nothing, because he's making her feel comfortable. In a certain respect, he's making her feel comfortable. She feels comfortable trying to win over his love. She's going to lash out on you because you're treating her like she's deserving. She doesn't feel like she is. Therefore, she's looking at you like you're weak. Eureka. Now, I took it further and I said, I'm interested in knowing her mom. What kind of relationship did her mom have with her mom or her dad? Like, where's the dad in all this? And when we went back and she started describing the different relationships, that's my main thing, is I was trying to make her understand that people tend to get caught in their own holding patterns because they don't release what affected them from childhood. A lot of times, if it's a family thing, it's from childhood, no matter who it is in childhood. And the reason I talk so much about that is because that you can keep going back in time. Okay, if you're affected by like a relationship or something that's changed you, if you're a certain person in a certain relationship or a certain friendship or anything else like that changes you over time, then that's the focal point. You can go from there and you can say, okay, that person who treated you a certain way, if it had to do with this person treating you a certain way, what was their family life like, their family life like, or how were their relationships? Because we can take it there too. We can say so-and-so is, and I can do that myself, why I'm to the point and become over time to the point I am, how I relate to men in relationships. Even though might have the best intentions, it's very difficult for me to actually really hold on to feelings for somebody. I'm thinking about how I've gotten this way. I'm constantly thinking about it because I'm in a place where I really would like to open up more and be more accepting. But it's hard for me, but I have to get to that focal point. Now I can look back and I can say, okay, I saw things in childhood because I did. I had a big Italian family. I saw a lot when it comes to relationships. Okay. Did that affect me? Yeah, to a certain extent. I'm realizing a lot of that did. But over time, what I think really affected me more was going back and understanding the different relationships I was in, the ones that I didn't really care about, not in a bad way, in a like I never mistreated anybody, but the ones I couldn't really connect to were usually the ones that were more accepting of me, which is really crazy. Because now it's the opposite. If you're not accepting of me, I lose interest. If you are not trying to make me feel like I'm important, I lose interest. That's actually a growth for me. But back in the day, the ones I would attach to, the ones who affected me in a negative way after we broke up, the ones I couldn't let go of, were the ones I felt like I had to fight for. I had to work for it. Okay? I had to work at showing I was worthy. Okay? Now, these aren't boohoo things with me. This is fascinating to me. When I look back and I see all the holding patterns that I've been stuck in, it's fascinating. But what's mostly fascinating is that I'm able to actually dive deep in and understand how things have set in my mind. So like I said, when I go back to childhood, when you're able to trace it back to childhood, it's very interesting to see where it started. Because a lot of times you can go back so far in time and realize that all these people had struggles in childhood. Therefore, as they grew up, they reacted, they did what they learned. In some cases they would do the exact opposite, whether they became a rebel or it was a learned behavior. If it's an abusive situation, a lot of times people learn they don't deal with stress very well and they end up hitting to relieve that stress. Well, then you get to the next generation, then you have kids, and then you build up that tension and you hit, or verbal abuse or whatever. At some point, you're caught in a holding pattern. At some point, somebody has to recognize that. That's my main point with these holding patterns, is what I'm talking about. Even with my chaotic clothing situation. So do you see where, if you really get in the flip the switch frame of mind, if you really start thinking along those same lines, you can pick up lessons from everything, every conversation. You can have a Mel's Eureka moment from the smallest things. Just that conversation with my mom talking about how I feel chaos in my house because I have so much stuff. I want to get rid of stuff. But here's why I don't. and I can't over here because of this, and I'm holding on to this because of this, but then it traces it back to the origin. That's a holding pattern. Break it. Find a way to break it. Move on. How that one conversation led me into paying attention to all of the holding patterns I put myself in. All of the things that kind of come back around full circle. And it's like one thing can explain the next, or they're excuses. One's an excuse for the next. Why you can't do this is an excuse for that, is an excuse for that. Okay? I'm trying to break myself out of lifetime holding patterns. A lot of times, every time what it takes is to understand that you're in a holding pattern in life, something that you're striving for. And here's a good way to understand that. Here's a good way to identify it. I've started doing this. Think of goals we've had. I can always go back to episode 22. I think that might be my main episode on this show because I can always refer back to the realization of episode 22, Defining and Tackling Mel's Bucket List. And when I go back to that, realize that there are certain things that I had pinpointed in life. Now, when you think of something that you had pinpointed in life, a goal or how you visualize your life, even the house you want, whatever, and you think, how am I stopping myself from getting there? Sometimes if you really, write a list. Okay, here's a homework assignment. Do that. Think of how you visualized your life, things you've wanted in your life. Mine does include a good relationship. Okay, it's a desire. It's not something I think I need. It's been a desire to fulfill a part of me, that is lacking. Okay, that's always feels empty. Different desires that we have in life or things that we've pictured in our lives, write them down if you haven't achieved it. If you're struggling to achieve certain things, even if it's a personality type, a part of your personality that you want, that you feel is you deep inside, but you can't express, write it down. Look into it and figure out what your holding pattern has been. What has stopped you? Okay? Because when you think of the first step of what has stopped you, think of, okay, what has stopped me from getting to that step? Think of it in steps. Okay? What has stopped me from there? A lot of times it'll connect. And that's what I found fascinating. That's the main point. A lot of times when you trace back the issues that are stopping you from something in life that you desire, anything at all that you desire, that truly you look at and think, that is my ultimate goal, to be, to do, to experience, to have, whatever. If you keep tracing it back to what's stopping you from this point, what's stopping that point, what's stopping that point, a lot of times it circles right back and you realize you're caught in a holding pattern. Okay, so to go back to my main story, there are so many stories I can tell you because I started realizing how many holding patterns I've been in. To go back to the original, talking about the stupid clothes. Here's what I decided to do. When I get downstairs, and I'm ready to do this because right now I'm busy working on other things. When I decide to make it a priority, I'm going to go down and be very focused. I'm going to take each and every outfit and I'm going to put it on. I'm going to do I can't remember her name. I wanted to pull up her name and talk about her. She's an Oriental lady. She's just all full of love and joy, and that's her big thing, is putting all your clothes together for clothes. But it's with her thing, it's a bigger concept as well. You put everything that you're trying to, when you're trying to sort out your life. It's a life thing, but you do it with your home. And the first step is your clothes, and you take every bit of clothing you own from every drawer, every closet, and you put it in the middle of your bed, because you have to intake that visualization of that pile and realize, there's my chaos. I'm going to talk about her one of these days, by the way. I don't have time to talk about her anymore. I can't even remember her name. I love her, though. I saw a couple of her episodes, and I thought I need to do that. But with her, it's clothes. It has to do with bringing joy to your life, and it has to do with ending the chaos. And in every episode I've seen, it really goes so much deeper. She's a flip the switch type of person because it goes much deeper than just getting rid of clothes and cleaning out your house. But that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to go downstairs and I'm just going to start off with that one area that has those suits. I'm going to put each and every one on. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to decide, does this bring joy to me? Will I actually wear it? Think to yourself, is there ever going to be an occasion or a specific where I'm going to wear this? Not just once. I'm not just going to keep holding on to this for years and years and years, that I might want to wear this someday. Do I need to take it in? If I take it in and have it, tailored or whatever, will I wear it then? Will I have a special occasion to wear it? Will I start wearing it on a routine basis if it fits me well? Does it bring joy to my life? And if it doesn't, I'm going to turn around and get rid of it. And I'm not going to look back. I'm going to do what she does. I'm going to hold each piece, say thank you for the joy you brought me, or whatever. I release you. I thank you for everything you brought me, and now I'm letting you go. I know it sounds corny. I wish I had the name of her show and her name to tell you, but hopefully I'll remember the next time I talk to you. But it's such a huge concept. The whole thing is a huge concept. It's a life concept. And maybe it's because I started watching her show that all of a sudden this Smell Eureka moment started and made me realize my own holding patterns, whatever. But that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a couple of those pieces that I've had a really hard time getting rid of, and I'm going to put them on, and I'm going to think, if I looked better in this, if they were tailored, how much joy would this bring? Would I actually wear it? And I'm going to keep certain pieces, and I'm going to go and I'm going to put that money and that effort into it. And then when I do have them tailored, I'm going to specifically find a reason to wear them. And that will break me out of, like they say, when it comes to clothes, you wear like 10% or 20% of your clothes. Well, that's what I'm going to do. And they also say if you haven't worn something within a year, to get rid of it. Well, that's one of the things I actually started doing at the beginning of this year, but then I kind of let that go. Was I was wearing everything that I had in my closet at least once. And during the day at work, if I really liked it, then I was going to keep it. If I didn't, I'd say, okay, there, I wore this outfit. Now I'm going to go and do something with it. So anyway, I hope that you got the gist of tonight's show. Believe it or not, in my head, there's so much more to it. It's so much a bigger concept, life concept, than anything having to do with clothes, really. I will, like I said, I'm kicking myself for not being able to tell you her name, because she really figures into this whole concept hugely. So I think I'm going to continue this show, by the way, and talk about like her mindset. Anyway, let me see. I may or may not be able to talk to you next Tuesday, depending on what I can come up with, because of my visit. If I do, I'll put it out there on Facebook, of course. I'm late today because I've been, consumed with getting stuff done. But as far as anybody who follows my Facebook page and looks for the event and the idea of the show and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, once again, I ask if you would go and follow my YouTube channel. I'm behind on that. If you do follow my YouTube channel, I'm behind on that because I've had computer issues lately. So I, at this point, need to podcast the last two shows, and then as soon as I'm done with this one, I'm going to go ahead and create a podcast and put it out there and catch up on this as well. So other than that, I want to thank you all for listening, and stay tuned next for Tiffany Lewis. I believe Tiffany's coming on tonight. Tiffany Lewis on Be the Change, and I'll talk to you all next Tuesday, maybe I will talk to you in 2 weeks. Tuesday, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on clearsourceradio.com. Have a great week, and I hope that you identify your holding patterns and find a way to escape them. Descend, land already. Alrighty, talk to you later. Bye.